Voices in this interview have been modified to protect identity. Viewer discretion is advised.
We moved here July of 2020, and we started our daughter and son in Priest River Elementary School. And so our daughter was in first grade, son in kindergarten, and our daughter was doing really well at first. She was definitely thriving, really proud of her 100% spelling tests, and she was doing well. And it wasn't too long into the school year when she just started having a lot of like odd behavior, like anxiety and just things I've never seen her behave like. There were like meltdowns that she's never experienced before, things where we would even have to like hold her because she was just completely out of control. And so we had kind of started looking for a counselor because I thought, well, what's going on, and it was Thanksgiving break, and she has a thing called premature adrenarche where she's kind of developed early. So I was supposed to make sure that she didn't develop up top too soon because she's, in first grade. And so if she did, then we would kind of have to take a route with that. So we would have like every once in a while where I would check that for her, and it would always be the same thing, the spiel of hey, this is mom, we're doing this because of this, it's not okay that anybody else ever do this to you, like this is only because of this. And so she was like, okay, same thing, everything was normal. And then I went to check and she like pulled back hard. She was really freaked out, and I was like, okay, we're not gonna do this. And I tried to kind of talk to her, like, well, what's going on? Are you okay? Like, and then that's when she finally kind of came out and told me that four boys from her school in her class were molesting her. She obviously didn't use the word molested, but it was, a lot of questions of, okay, well, where are they touching you? Up, up top. She pointed up top, and she pointed to down below. And so I tried really hard just to ask questions like, okay, where, show me, things like that. And so she did show me that they go inside with their fingers, and she said it hurts really bad. And so we've just are we I guess just kind of talked to her a little more about that. Again, just kind of questions more than trying not to like lead it or anything. And then we called her counselor.
And this is at Priest River.
At Priest River Elementary. We called her counselor, who thankfully we had just gotten like with a week before that. We had our intake appointment for her to finally get her some help. And I called her on what to do. It was the weekend, so she she said don't talk about it anymore with her. Bring her in Monday, and we'll go from there. And so I brought her in Monday. She talked to the counselor. She said definitely police report. She's gonna file a report, and the police will guide you what to do. And so we went to. She said go to local law enforcement. So we went to them and did a report. Wrote everything on a piece of paper, gave it to them. They said the same thing. They said don't question her, don't talk to her, like whatever you've said is fine, but up until this point, but now just be like a wall is what we were recommended to do. Don't just like a soundboard, like she talks and you don't really say anything, just kind of be like, oh, okay. And then we had a forensic interview with Lily Brooke the next day. So we took her to that. Lily Brooke, after the interview, did confirm that yes, this happened. That everything is adding up. It makes sense, and that it should be kind of taken seriously. And Sergeant Davis was present for that interview. He was up there. He wasn't in the room, but he was up there being able to view it and listen. And he also agreed that, this was something that happened. And he instructed me to talk to the principal at the time, who was Connie Kimball, and figure out a plan so she could stay in school and feel safe on the playground where this was happening. It happened on the playground. There's like, I'm not sure if it's like west, east. You're better at that than me. But it's over. There's like these three, I think it's three trees and this little jungle gym. And so it happened over there. So, and it was multiple times.
Sorry, yeah, it was the northeast side of the playground. And there was some trees, and it was a very kind of a private area away from all the other children.
And it happened many times. My daughter said it happened a lot. So that would have been from September to Thanksgiving break, so end of November.
2020.
Yeah. And then, so we did the interview. Sergeant Davis told us, to reach out to the school so we could set up a kind of a safety thing. And his idea was to just put somebody with her at all times on the playground. And he said, but reach out to Connie because it's not her first rodeo, so she'll know what to do. And I told him, I said, I don't even know if I'm comfortable with her going back at this point. I mean, or if she'll even go back. So, sorry.
You're doing really good. This is good.
So, Sergeant Davis did say that he was going to go get the video footage from the school and see what he can find on that. And he said he'd go that same day I made the report. So it was kind of hard to get a hold of him regarding that for a while. And it did take, I mean, I don't know how long investigations take, but it seemed to kind of be dragging on a little bit. And he said because of COVID, that's why it was taking so long. And I did call him at one point because he said that I had to contact the school. I had to let them know if I was taking them out because I was going to be truant if I didn't let them know, yeah, that I was taking them out and what my plans were for schooling for the kids. So I finally did send Connie an email about that, and she said that I believe she said like she understood is how she kind of responded to it. So that was the only communication that I had had with the school. I was too scared to go in there without like a lawyer or something. And I did feel really pressured to go and talk by Sergeant Davis, but nobody ever reached out to me either. And so that was literally the only communication between that and the time I pulled them out of school. I pulled them out right away. I guess it was between that and the time I let her know I was pulling them. But yeah, they didn't go back after break. So, um,
bulk of it. There was one meeting that we had, and it was on a Zoom meeting, right? And it was us two, it was the children's counselor, it was Sergeant Davis, Chief McLean, it was
Veronica from the prosecutor's
it was
office
the yes. I don't know
in
if she
Bonner
was the
County.
prosecutor or not, but her name was Veronica, and then there was other individuals kind of seating in one of the screens,
And two Bonner County sheriffs.
two Bonner County
office
sheriffs,
officers.
and so this all these events were discussed, and there was some muting going on in the background.
On Veronica's end.
On Veronica's side, they would mute their end and have discussions. There was just a lot of things seemed really odd. From the very beginning, things did not seem normal. You just had the feeling and the sense that people were already trying to hide something.
And that call was supposed to be Veronica, my daughter's counselor, and me. So when I got on, there were all these people that, like, was not planned for at all. So it was kind of like a shock.
So all these people heard the story and no
Right.
charges were ever filed?
Oh, so Sergeant Davis went. He said this took months to finally come out. That he had gotten the footage, and he told me that, there was nothing like I was describing on the footage. He said that area doesn't have a camera on it anyway, which I already figured because it's kind of out, further away. So I said, well, what is like on the footage? And he said, oh, it's just, kids playing on the playground and like the footage from the other angles. And I said, okay, well, is like my daughter in there with, because she said that the boys would grab her and pull her over there. So, what is that on there? Does it show her with the boys at all in the areas that it did record? And he said, no, there is no footage. And I said, well, what do you mean? You just said there was. And then Chief McLean this was the first time he really talked. He had said he was on the phone, but at that point he said no, it re-recorded over. When we went to look for it, it had recorded over. It's like starts over, it dumps everything and kind of starts over. And he said, so there's no footage. And I said, but you guys just said there was. Like, what footage were you talking about? That kind of thing. And Chief McLean just said, oh, you misunderstood. And so, for me, that was suspicious, kind of thing. And it's just been a lot of like that stuff. A lot of, they said, they were going to interview all the boys, interview anyone that could have possibly seen anything. That my daughter mentioned had kind of walked over at the time or could have seen. They only, to my knowledge, talked to two kids. One was a like potential witness, I guess, and that boy couldn't think of anything. I know my daughter had mentioned it was like one time that he walked by and she thought he was going to do something because he was, I forget what they called it. He was like the class, like honorary student, or I don't know. So she thought, oh, he's going to do something. And he didn't. And so I had to explain to her that he probably didn't know what he was seeing, sweetie. Like he probably didn't understand or he would have probably done something, right? Like, and then he talked to another one of the boys, which I don't know which one. And in each case, it looks like, based on the report that they gave me, the redacted report, that it was maybe like a couple questions, and that was it. And I did talk to the mom of the boy who they had interviewed, the nice one, and she said, yeah, it was pretty, pretty not really in depth of a thing, and she wasn't impressed with the process, but she didn't really know, you know, much about the case in its entirety. So that was like a year later. I ended up meeting her and talking to her. And then I don't know who the other boy was he talked to, but I had asked at one point, how they were questioning the kids, because they said they just have nothing to go off of. And Sergeant Davis said, well, if I were to ask you as a 6-year-old, you know, if you ever saw anything weird happening around, how would you respond? And I told him, well, I don't know. Is that something I would even know what it is to know if it was weird or not? Like, you know what I mean? So, there was that said, and I asked if CPS had been called, and just things like that. That, like, if this is happening to my daughter, 4 of these boys, what's happening in their homes? And there was one kid who was kind of more like the head of it, and I did find out later that his dad was convicted of murder. So, uh,
What was that board meeting that we went to?
the 3Cs meeting.
You wanted to go over that?
Oh yeah, well, I went there and I did read. That was kind of my first time really speaking
at that meeting.
Yeah, yeah, it was the very first one. And we were like in the library of the school, and that was really my first time kind of finally like telling it a little bit, and sharing that, because I did find out that I had met with my daughter's teacher, very shortly after I pulled her, because she had like some books and things that she wanted to give to her. And at the time, I remember she told me that she didn't know why we were pulling. Said I just heard that it wasn't me, and I don't know anything else. But she said I'm really sorry if it was me. Like you could just tell she did not know. She had no idea. And then I was still kind of scared to say anything. So about year year or two later, I finally met with her teacher, and I told her everything that happened, and she like couldn't believe it. She was then scared because she has family members who are, you know, in on the playground with those kids, like things like that that just really freaked her out. She said, "Yeah, I had no idea. No idea." And she was glad that she did know, because now she could make sure that you know other kids are okay and being kind of kept safe, I guess, in that aspect. So
Sounds like there's a culture of this in the school district where you have students taking naked pictures of themselves and sending it to other students or wherever, and they're just brushing that aside, just saying it's normal behavior. Um, can you speak to that at all? Have you heard other stories of other people affected in like manner?
I've heard, I've talked to, a few close people, and I've heard that it's the same stories in different, in whether it's elementary, junior high, and it's brushed under the rug. I definitely hear a lot of like, oh, if you've got the right last name, you're good. and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I try not to get too caught up in that, but when it's thrown in your face like that, and it is, um,
It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So there is this.
that I love that sense of that small town feel that I come from a smaller town, and I loved that. I loved that you go to the market and everybody, and you're like, hi, and I certainly came here with that, like, joy about that. And now it's kind of like it's almost become a curse, for our family. So, um, I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely get that sense that there are things hidden that are happening with the local police, with the school, with the resource officer
Yeah.
situation. There's just too many. It feels weird. It's almost like this pink elephant that's so obvious, but no one talks about it. And this whole experience for us and our family, it's like it's like you can sense that they're trying to suppress this from getting out. This whole thing was swept under the rug. We were ignored as much as possible. You kept trying to like talk to someone and email someone, and the responses were just weak or almost.
Yes.
It's like they don't want this information out, and it's very obvious, but you can't prove anything. You just can't prove anything. So,
That was. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, I was gonna say, with our daughter, through this process, she got exponentially worse as the months followed.
Oh, yeah.
Her anxiety got horrific. I was actually admitted for a few days to in Coeur d'Alene. They have like a children's.
Kootenai behavioral.
Is that yes? So she was. I mean, it got to the point where we couldn't. We had no control over her. It was at that level, and so until now, like people don't. This is the first time this is becoming. We're speaking out about this finally.
Yeah.
You spoke at the Three Cs meeting. Do you want to tell us how was that received?
Um, I would say pretty well. I, right away, Jackie came up and she hugged me. I would say that was.
Jackie Branham, the former superintendent of West Bonner County School District.
And she gave me a hug where she looked me in the eyes and was like actually like crying with me, kind of thing. Well, she did cry. And she told me that that's gonna change. She's not gonna let that continue. And she said, I promise you, while I'm here, that is not going to be allowed to happen. It was an actual interaction where I finally felt like heard, and like she was actually gonna do something. I was really excited. And then I spoke to the principal, and I forget her name. To my knowledge, she's still the one who's there. And that, to me, was more of a. Like, she said she was sorry that happened, and she said that they were working on getting cameras in that area, and that she'd get the cameras. And to my knowledge, there's still no cameras. So it was relatively recent, but not. It was like months, at least. And so that kind of was more of a like neutral, there wasn't really a connection, a oh my gosh, like an emotional. It almost was more like
It was distant. You almost got the sense that there was legality
yeah,
present
yeah.
now, so they had to be careful.
That's the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
With what they said or didn't say, it became awkward right away.
Right, but it wasn't like that with Jackie at all.
Mm-hmm.
She said that it was wrong. She said, all this stuff. So
Yeah. Well, she hugged you for a long time.
yes, yeah. And then there were a couple other community members that came up to me, and were local area members that spoke to me after, and I could see the faces of many of the teachers that were there and things like that, and they just, you could tell they didn't know. It was a shock to them. Um, but that was really the only people I talked to.
And a couple years prior, so they, even after all that time, they still weren't in the know. So things weren't being fixed, apparently, is what it sounds.
I do know that I found out that the school nurse at the time did call CPS. She was advised not to, but she did anyway, because she was concerned about what was happening in the boys' homes. So I believe it was, yeah, she was advised not to, but because somebody else was going to do it, but nobody else ever did it, so she just did it.
And were these boys all the same age? Were they a little bit different in grade?
Same grade as her, so they were that first grade, so it'd be around 6 or 7. My daughter was 6 at the time, so.
Did you have any other officials, any other people in the school district that came forward to support you?
Not during that time. I hadn't talked about it at all. So I know that, after speaking with my daughter's teacher, after, however many years, she was very like, I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to make sure that people know, and we can, like, prevent this from happening. At least as teachers, like, on our time, like, that kind of thing. Um, so So that made me feel a little better. I did feel really bad for not speaking up sooner, because it's kind of one of those things like, how many other kids did this happen to? And I know it's not my fault, but I feel responsible in a sense, you know?
Well, it sounds like you've tried everything you could. And then did you ever hear from the county prosecutor's office as to?
Just that on that Zoom call, that they can't do any charges because of their ages. And on that call, so Veronica had said they can't charge. They're not going to go forward with it. And they just don't have enough. And their ages, and that was one thing that one of the male sheriffs, I never did get his name, but we do have recordings of that audio. He had told me that, because they're young, underage, and because, you know, children are curious, boys will be boys, like, we can't do anything. And, at that point, I did at least feel confident enough to tell him, don't tell me boys will be boys. That's disgusting. Like, that's not what that means. And, it just, it didn't go anywhere. It just, and unfortunately, I already knew that was going to happen. I have a cousin who's kind of high up in the police force. I don't know what his rank is or anything, I guess is what it's called, but he's high up. He's been there for a long time where he's at, and I called him and I was like, what do I do? Like, I'm scared because I believe they're covering it up, and it's not going to go anywhere. And he said he said that to me. He said, well, here's what they're going to say. They're going to say children are curious and they're underage and they can't do anything about it. They're not going to do anything. Even if they had the evidence, they wouldn't do it. And so I had talked to him not long before that call. And so unfortunately, it was not as big of a surprise because, I had just talked to him.
So it definitely sounds like there's a culture of that. They're trying to protect this happening, I guess. It sounds like. I mean, so can you tell us a little bit about the text exchanges that you had?
Yeah, I had messaged Connie Kimball on Facebook.
And who's that?
He was the principal at the time.
Of Priest River Elementary?
Priest River Elementary. Okay. So I sent her a message on December 2nd, 2022. So it was, a while after, but I had finally kind of felt like I was able to say something to her. and I never really got to say that. I did just kind of tell her kind of like who I was, in the sense that, you know, my daughter had attended the school, she was sexually molested. I told her that I just wasn't happy with, I don't know how what all I said, but basically that this has caused hardships on our family. It's been horrible, and I think the way it was handled was absolutely horrible. The way it was swept under the rug and not talked about. And I think I can kind of look here a little bit. The very first thing she asked me was, "What's your last name? And did you send the same messages to the police who investigated? What were you hoping to gain by sending this message? I think you may have a mental health issue. You may need to seek out some help." So,
That's from the principal
the principal at the
of the elementary school.
so she kind of definitely, I would say that she she took it off of her and tried to put it on, well, did you talk to the police? Did you send them the same thing? And then tried to make it seem like I was just nuts. So
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything else that's of importance that you can think of?
I think just that, like, just to make it clear that I guess that I'm doing this because I don't want this to happen to anyone else. It's been absolutely horrible for our family and our daughter, and you know, she's finally like leveling out a little bit, you know, like it's like we're finally getting there, but I don't want this to happen to any other kids. And so that's like my main goal in doing this. I mean, justice and things would be great, you know, for our family, like, but I just don't want this to happen to anyone else.
All right, and you're definitely you have a lot of courage to do this, so thank you for telling your story. And did you have anything else you'd like to add?
I just wanted to make it clear for the C3 meeting. Sorry. So I wanted to make it clear for the 3C meeting. The whole purpose of us going to that meeting was to talk about this very thing. We had written down like everything. It was like a speech essentially, and it was an entire. It was in the library. There was a lot of people. It was board members, but it was a lot of people in the community. I would say at least 20 adults were in there, and the reaction. So everybody had their moment to speak and give their ideas. We waited till the very end. We stood up at the very end. Does anyone else have anything else to add or say? We raised our hands, we stood up, and she read this entire, you know, summary, this whole report that must have been a page or a little longer than a full page. And the room was awkward, it was silent. So a lot of people heard what was said in this small town. So people became aware of what happened. And it was graphic, it was uncomfortable. These were parents in that meeting. And it's almost as though that never happened. It's like the school and the community, it's almost like we didn't even do that. So there are things like that that are continually happening where you'd think someone would do something, someone would say something, but no, it's just absolute silence. It's complete silence in this community. It's like, it's hard to explain the eeriness of what's going on. I just wanted to add that. I can't really think of anything else that's pretty prominent.
What do you hope? I mean, you kind of already stated that. What do you? I mean, as far as how do you think this can get resolved? Do you have any? I mean, how
one thing I think needs to happen is I think the school resource officer needs to be someone who's not involved with the police station. I think that that is, I mean, even looking into the levy and things like that, he was getting paid a pretty good amount by that levy. So, you know, not to dive into any kind of like weird conspiracy theories or anything, but like that's why I believe that it didn't get.
Becomes a conflict of interest.
Yes, I think there was a huge conflict of interest having him do the case, and unfortunately, I think, you know, even Chief McLean had his wife at one point was involved, you know, in the school and things like that, and I think that that just messes things up, or messes things up. But yeah, I think that the school resource officer needs to go, and I know it's like, well, now we have to hire another person, but I think that that would change things if you have a neutral party like that.
And is there something maybe the new superintendent Brandon Durst could do? Do you think to after maybe there's some play there that maybe he could maybe do something too, maybe, huh, to fix this culture that's in this community here.
Yeah, I think, I think just if he's able to listen to people like us, you know, who have gone through this stuff, and to know that there's a lot more. It's not just us. And then I think there needs to be cameras in that area, in better recording if something is going to actually record over something, that needs.
Did you ask the school about that? What their policy is as far as recording?
Didn't Chief McLean had told me that.
There must be a policy that addresses that. How that.
And asked, no, I didn't talk to them at all other than withdrawing.
Okay.
So I never got a chance to. But like I said, I was too scared to go in there without some kind of lawyer. It just sounded really like it was headed that way. Like if I were to say anything, I don't know, they're gonna lawyer up, and then, you know, there we go.
Yeah, they get really quiet once they think there's going to be a lawsuit or something.
Yes, yeah.
Are you planning to file a lawsuit?
I would have wanted to. I think we might be over the time. We did try. We contacted people, and it was, you know, as soon as you say, well, we're wanting to go up against the school, people are out.
Right.
They're like, no, we can't, you know, and one person did say, like, well, let us know when you get the report and things like that, and I let them know, and they just didn't get back. I think these were all kind of more local lawyers, and I think I'm wondering if maybe we had gone with someone from like Boise, if they would have taken it on.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for your courage. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.